But why would you want sanctions which would affect the lives of your own people? You're calling for further sanctions on the regime in Iran, and you're going on and saying that, of course, this is not your exact words here, that this is not the war of the Iranian people, it is Ali Khamenei's war. But my question to you is, why would you want sanctions which would make it more and more difficult for your own people, for people in hospitals in Iran, for children to get the food and the medicines they need in Iran, and for the old and elderly people needing treatment to be denied the access to medicines and treatment that they would need? Would you say that even their suffering would be justified towards the larger purpose which you're pushing for?
Basically, you're parroting the argument of the apologists for the regime and those who always have said that sanctions doesn't work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Look, the regime is not spending money on the Iranian people. Do you think that the $100 billion they received was spent on any school or hospitals or helping the people who are starving on the streets of Iran? They did get that money recently, didn't they? Was it spent? Was a cent of it spent on Iranian, despite the fact that we have sanctions? It wasn't. This is simply money in the hand of the regime. And the reason why sanctions are important, it's not because it affects the people of Iran. It's because it's going to restrain the regime to have more means to support its war machine of repression at home and conflict abroad. Now, of course, sanctions in and of itself is not sufficient. You need to have, parallel to this, a policy of support. These two ingredients combined could put an end to this regime as a result of change from within. But that hasn't done. So if there's a continuation of economic malaise in Iran, it's not because of the sanctions, it's because of the regime has not been truly challenged so that we can get rid of it. Once we are rid of it, immediately the economic situation in Iran could improve. Everybody knows that. Iranians are understanding of that. How many Iranians, despite the fact that are in fuel lines, despite the fact that they are starving, are objecting to any kind of pressure on the regime? Only the regime and its elements say that, not the Iranian people. It all depends who you're listening to. Are you listening to the regime propagandists, or are you listening to the Iranian people? If you listen to the Iranian people, you will see that the majority of them understand the reason why this regime needs to be sanctioned. Because it is under appeasement that the regime silently executes more people, brutalizes more women, keeps more people in jail and dissidents. They have to face that kind of pressure from the outside world, but they also need to receive the support in order to do whatever they need to do from within. These are the two combination elements. So yes, it is important to maintain pressure on this regime. Because you have to limit its ability. It's not going to trickle down to the people. Even if the sanctions were removed, this regime will not be spending it on the Iranian people.
Got it. But obviously you can disagree with my question, but you have absolutely no right to make some kind of assumption that, you can disagree with the question, but you have no right to make the assumption that I am repeating the propaganda of others, because I'm not making a similar charge about you on the program. I equally can say that you're also being a propagandist for certain interests in the West, but I'm not saying that. So I think we should reserve our views of who feels who's speaking for whom to ourselves, because if we want to discuss the Middle East, and I can push the envelope on that, it is the United States which is the elephant in the room. America's Iran policy does not have a bipartisan consensus. We have typically seen Democrats indulging more with the present regime in Iran vis-a-vis the Republicans. And some analysts say it's unlikely that the Israeli response may have been less restrained but for a Democrat, Joe Biden, as a president. You've been yourself critical of Biden. So essentially we can't cover up the fact that there's a lack of bipartisan consensus within the United States. In any case, my follow-up question to you is, and that's only my response to your unfair charge. My question to you is, why should the people of Iran believe that you have their best interests in mind? Because you lived in the United States for a large part of your life. You moved there well in your 20s. You've lived outside Iran, and you're very vocal about the situation in Iran. Some people would see you as a Western prop. How would you respond to that? That you're taking a certain political line which would go well with the West, but not be in the interests of the Iranian people. This charge is something I want you to respond to as directly as possible.
That's very easy to prove. All you have to do is to monitor Iranian social media. All you have to do is to look at various polls that have been done about what level of support or popularity I have in Iran. These are not polls conducted by me. It's in fact conducted by elements who are not necessarily my sympathizers. And you will see right there and then the amount of respect and trust that they have in what I've been doing and the legacy of my family. All you have to do is to monitor what's happening in Iranian social media and the feedback and reactions that my compatriots are demonstrating. Now, as far as my own contact with my fellow compatriots, which is on a daily basis, the fact that I was physically unable to be in Iran, the fact that I was physically away from my country, doesn't mean for a second that I'm not aware of everything that is happening in my country every single day, in all of the smallest details. Why is this vision important? And that's the reason why Iranians have faith in my ability to help them, is because this is one of the very few people, if not the only person they can trust. And they say so. And that trust has tremendous amount of value for me. It's a political capital that I'm spending on the liberation of my fellow compatriots. They need to have a chance to determine their own future. Currently, they don't. And what I stand for is a process that not only frees our country from the stronghold of a religious dictatorship, but would also provide them with an opportunity to decide their own fate in the parliamentary process. This is exactly the kind of plan that I'm proposing. It has nothing to do with America or Europe or any other country. It's a process that we as Iranians deserve to have to determine our own fate. So on that basis, my ask and my message to anybody who's willing to listen to this message is to understand why Iranians deserve to have that opportunity, something they've been deprived on ever since this regime has taken over. That's what I stand for. This is my agenda, and let the chips fall where they may.